James Rosen from Washington, D.C. this morning. James, thanks so much. Joining us now with a little bit more insight today, Director of Communications and Media for the Ukrainian Congress Committee of America, Andrij Dobriansky. Andrij, thanks so much for jumping on with us, and welcome once again. You joined us Friday night. You had quite impressive and poignant comments Friday evening as well. That roundtable, though, at the White House, quite extraordinary yesterday to hear the European leaders to really have this open, organic, transparent conversation. We all witnessed it together, the eyes of the world on the White House yesterday. We heard European leaders say, quote, there has been more progress in the past 2 weeks than in the past 3.5 years when it comes to ending the war in Ukraine. What's on your mind this morning as we wrap that meeting and head into the next round of talks?
Well, also the talks continue today in London, where they took the talking points that President Trump, the plan that he proposed, and there's a coalition of the willing being done half in person, half online in London. And they're close to getting a location in Switzerland as a proposed meet-up for President Zelensky and President Putin. But what I want to mention is all the media I've been doing in Ukraine since Monday. And there's one person that wasn't in that room that is being talked about more than anybody on Ukrainian television, and that's Melania Trump. I'd like to let the viewers know what a big difference and influence she had, even though she wasn't in the room. And that's because of her fortitude to write a letter to President Putin, to convince her husband that this is important enough that you need to give that letter to him. And what we saw in the room that you mentioned, where we all saw that conversation, is that European leaders all mentioned, not all of them, but many of them mentioned Melania's concern for the children of Ukraine, and children need to be returned and not harmed. She is so influential in this conversation. I don't think you can point to another international diplomatic moment where somebody outside the room had such a big influence on what is being discussed.
And fascinating that the people of Ukraine know about that letter. They've been following it and they were buoyed by it. So I want to jump forward to my producers in the control room here. I want to play a piece of sound that President Zelensky, taking off on what you were just speaking of, those children. President Zelensky spoke about the children yesterday at that meeting. You talked about them Friday evening when we spoke with you on this network. Just to bring our audience up to speed, just in case they haven't heard, these boys, young men, have been taken, you say, by Russia, some 20,000 children. Zelensky spoke about them yesterday. Let's listen.
The second point, or maybe the first, the humanitarian direction, very important to exchange all the prisoners, and I think that President will help. And I was very thankful to your wife again, Mr. President, for the letter about our abducted children, and I hope that really it can be a historic role for the people to bring kids back to the families and be happy. And
get the people back, yeah?
Yes, this is so important, and I'm happy that we discussed it.
When we spoke with you Friday night, Andrij, you were quite honestly apoplectic about these children, and rightfully so. You must have been buoyed somewhat to hear Zelensky address it and then even say this has to be part of the deal.
Absolutely. And again, I thank President Zelensky because he's been trying to bring this up, but it's really the efforts of Melania Trump to get this into the worldwide conversation. And that's what happened both at the summit at the White House yesterday and at that follow-up today in London. People are talking about children, and we're talking about up to 20,000 that Ukraine can confirm. They've confirmed with their parents that they're not home, that they've been taken. But some Russian sources on Russian television have indicated that it could be up to several 100,000 that have gone to Russia with summer camps or maybe refugee status. And this comes back to the horrors that we saw in World War II, and no least of which, one of the trials at Nuremberg was the stealing of children. I'll let you know personally that in my family, we had family members that were abducted by the Nazis, and they were introduced to their prospective Nazi parents because they were thought well enough to be migrated into that. And this is why Melania's courage, I can't stress enough how much this is being talked about on Ukrainian television. She's not in the room. She's not a part of the conversation, but she made the issue on the foremost of minds of world leaders.
You know, quite honestly, in so much of the coverage that we have been covering in the last few weeks, there have only been drips and drabs mentioned of the children. And it was quite concerning to many of us editorially. We were wondering why that hadn't played a bigger role at the forefront. Certainly now moving forward, it sounds like it will. President Trump, meanwhile, has been criticized. He rolled out the red carpet for Vladimir Putin a Friday in Alaska. Listen to this, and I want to talk to you on the other side.
Seeing this guy in the White House bending over backwards for autocrats, making our service members literally roll out the red carpet for a mass murderer.
American service members literally rolling out a red carpet. Trump applauded. He shook Putin's hand. He invited him into the presidential limo.
Heroes welcome, red carpet, ride in the president's limousine and all for Putin.
So we're by no means done here, but if this is what it took to get to this point, was it worth it? I have about 30 seconds, Dree.
I think as to what we saw in the White House yesterday, every world leader said it was worth it because of the progress that was made. We heard Scott Bessent say that this morning. We heard Steve Witkoff say it. The progress that was made with getting Putin to accept certain terms made the conversation yesterday possible.
Andrij Dobriansky, thanks so much for jumping on and giving us your thoughts and perspective. Our thoughts and prayers with Ukraine always. Thank you so much, sir. I want to welcome